Have you ever looked at someone and felt inexplicably that there was something different about their face? It wasn't beauty. It wasn't charisma. It was something deeper. A silent, almost invisible impression, as if that person carried an ancient secret, a calling that even they couldn't name. And no matter how hard they tried to appear ordinary, something about them betrayed the disguise, as if the face itself were saying, "This soul is not from here." Perhaps you have felt this. Perhaps you have experienced the opposite being, the person who always heard, "You have a strange look. Your face is striking, but different." Perhaps you felt out of place without understanding why, as if there was something about you that the world couldn't decipher, and so it tried to ignore. What few people realize is that these small differences in the face, these subtle marks that no one can explain, may not be defects or genetic accidents. They may be seals, spiritual seals imprinted on the flesh, codes from above that silently reveal those who carry an unusual mission. Most people never notice, and even those who carry these marks often spend their entire lives trying to hide them, soften them, erase them as if they were a mistake. But what if I told you that these imperfections have a purpose? That there are specific signs on the faces of the truly chosen ones that are not aesthetic, but spiritual? What if what makes you look strange is exactly what makes you sacred? In this video, you will discover something that science cannot explain, but that scholars, mystics, and spiritual witnesses around the world have recognized for decades. There are 4 physical marks on the face that are repeated in people with a prophetic destiny. And when these marks come together on the same face, they form a map not of where you came from, but of who you are. A chosen one, an envoy, someone marked by God even before birth. I know what I'm talking about because I've seen it. I've seen it in others. I've seen it in myself. I've seen it in faces that didn't know what they carried, but carried light even in silence. I've seen marks that didn't bleed, but spoke. And it was only after a long time that I understood. God writes in detail, and sometimes He writes on the skin. But beware, not everyone is ready to see. This content is not for those who seek beauty. It is for those who seek truth. And the truth, when it enters, changes everything. So, if you've come this far, stay until the end. Because maybe, at the end of this video, you won't just see the signs. Maybe you'll finally see yourself. But before we continue, I invite you to activate this revelation. If what you are hearing touches something deep inside you, if every word seems to have been written directly to your spirit, write it right now in the comments. 99. This number carries a sacred meaning, spiritual protection, divine presence, and confirmation that angels are around those who have a mission on earth. By writing 99, you are not just commenting, you are telling the universe, "I recognize the signs. I know I have been chosen." And if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, do so now. Here, each video is a compass left for those who walk with purpose. You are not alone. And everything that seemed strange now begins to make sense. There are eyes that see and eyes that reveal. And though most people spend their lives looking for answers in words, movements, or smiles, those who are truly awake know this: the eyes never lie. Especially when they belong to someone who didn't come here just to live, but to carry visions, carry truths, carry a mission that began long before this life. It may seem like a small detail, one of the eyes slightly more open than the other, a gaze that lingers for just a moment too long, a subtle difference that, to the unaware, means nothing, but to those who know it speaks volumes. You feel it when you meet them. It's not in the color nor in the beauty, it's in the depth, in the weight, in the silent pressure of someone who has seen too much and carries what they cannot explain. This is not a medical condition, not a genetic flaw. This is what many mystics and spiritual observers call the eye of the spirit made flesh. One eye rooted in the world of form, aware of time, space, and reason. The other, more open, not just physically, but vibrationally, as if the soul had pushed against the skin, demanding to see more, as if the inner sight refused to stay hidden. This eye is not broken. It is blessed. It is the mark of someone who has witnessed without proof, who has traveled to other realms without leaving their body. And while most never notice it, those who get close enough, those who dare to look into that gaze and hold it, feel it in their chest. There is something here I can't explain, but I can't deny. It's unsettling. Beautiful, terrifying, divine. Those who carry this gaze often speak little of what they've seen, not because they don't want to, but because they know the world is not ready. Their silence is not ignorance, it is mercy. A sacred hush born from visions too vast for language. These are the eyes of the forerunners, the watchers, the ones who woke up early. Ancient spiritual texts describe this phenomenon with reverence. They believe that when the soul receives frequent revelation, the body begins to bend, to reflect, to expose that intensity. One eye opens wider, not out of dysfunction, but out of spiritual demand. It is the soul saying, "You will see what others cannot." And it doesn't stop there. These eyes often grow more sensitive with time, more moist during prayer, more reactive to light, to faces, to pain hidden behind polite words. They don't just see, they discern. They decode the pain behind the posture. They hear the scream buried in silence. And because of this, they often remain quiet. Because it's not easy to live seeing more than you can say. They avoid mirrors for long periods, not because they dislike their reflection, but because somewhere inside, they know. Those eyes are holding a message I'm still not ready to face, but the time is coming. And if you've looked in the mirror and felt this, if one of your eyes holds a weight you can't explain, it may not be a flaw. It may be your first seal, the mark of vision. The cross carried in silence by those whose sight pierces the veil. But the face doesn't stop there. Below the gaze, another mark emerges, one that cuts deeper not through vision, but through voice. There are lines on the body that have nothing to do with time and everything to do with purpose. One of them rests quietly beneath the mouth, a subtle crease in the chin, often dismissed as a minor detail. But for those who carry it, that line is not random. It is a scarless seal, a silent fold in the flesh that marks someone who was born to stand between two realms. It is not the result of surgery, trauma, or inheritance. It's older than that, deeper, spirit-woven. Those who have studied ancient mysticism, both Christian and Hebraic, know that the chin has long been seen as a symbol of spiritual authority. And when that line appears down the center, splitting the chin into two, it carries a sacred meaning. This soul was called to lead, even before it understood what that meant. It is the mark of those who were not trained to lead, but were thrust into leadership by the fire of experience. They didn't seek power. Power found them, often through pain, isolation, and pressure. They were the ones who had to hold others up, even while breaking inside, and somehow they kept going. The crease represents this exact tension, the pull between the visible and the invisible, between the practical and the prophetic, between being fully human and strangely divine. These are the ones who walk with one foot in time and one foot in eternity, never fully belonging to either, but responsible for both. And if you look closely, those with this mark tend to speak with a different weight. Their words don't shout, but they land, not because they're louder, but because they carry something. Even in silence, their presence brings alignment. You know it when they speak, you just listen differently. This is not charisma. It's not performance. It's something older, something sacred, a frequency of truth that doesn't come from talent, but from calling. Many who carry this mark have lived lives full of heavy decisions, family burdens, spiritual battles that started young. They were placed in positions of responsibility before they ever asked for it. And most of the time, they didn't feel ready. But readiness was never the point. Destiny doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It chooses and marks. If you've ever looked in the mirror and seen that line on your chin, if you've ever felt like you were leading others even while still figuring yourself out, that mark may not be just skin deep. It might be a message written by the divine. And if something inside you is whispering, "This is me," leave a comment below with the number. I see it now. No need to explain. Just write it. It's your way of saying, I see it now. I know I was called. Because you weren't made to fit in. You were made to stand between and lead. But this seal is only part of the map. Just beneath it, a softer sign begins to shine. Not in silence, but through the smallest movement of the face, the smile. There are faces that light up a room not because they seek attention, but because they carry comfort. And in some of them, a detail so small it often goes unnoticed speaks louder than any words. A solitary dimple nestled near the mouth. It may appear only when smiling, maybe just for a second, but for those who are awake, that small indentation carries a resonance that transcends flesh. It is not merely cute. It is not a random aesthetic. This mark, when it appears without symmetry, often only on one side, has long been regarded in spiritual observation as a seal of unspoken healing, a sign of those whose words carry warmth, whose presence eases pain, whose silence transmits peace. Many who have this dimple are not loud. They don't stand on stages or draw crowds. But somehow, people come to them. Strangers open up. Friends confess. The broken are drawn in without knowing why. And it's not manipulation, it's magnetism. A quiet, divine magnetism that calls out to the soul. You're safe here. J.J. Benitez, in his exploration of spiritual marks, called this the smile that carries the invisible. And he was right, because these people often don't even realize the depth of what they carry. They think they're just good listeners, but what they are is spirit transmitters. They hold the frequency of divine reassurance not because they try to, but because they are that frequency. This dimple often becomes more visible as the soul matures. It may appear stronger in moments of joy, but strangely, it never fully disappears even in grief. And that is the mystery. Because what this seal reflects is not emotion, but calling. In moments of loss, weariness, or even silence, the dimple remains as if whispering, "What you carry doesn't depend on your mood. It's written in you." Those who bear this mark often felt from a young age that they were meant to say something, even when they were shy, even when they doubted their voice. Deep down, they always knew, my words are meant to reach someone, not necessarily crowds, sometimes just one soul, but always with purpose. It's not about charisma, it's about connection, and the dimple is the doorway. But for those who carry it, this gift is not light. It comes with the weight of hearing others' pain, of carrying unspoken sorrow, of being the anchor for many while still learning to stand alone. Yet they keep showing up, keep speaking gently, keep healing often without even trying. And if the mouth holds this power, imagine what happens when the very center of the face carries its own ancient mark. Some marks don't need to speak, they just sense. And perhaps the most misunderstood of all the sacred seals is the one right in the center of the face, the nose. Not the perfectly shaped, surgically sculpted kind that fits the standards of modern beauty, but the slightly crooked, the curved, the pointed, the nose that doesn't quite conform. That's the one the spiritual world pays attention to. Because when the Creator marks someone for discernment, He doesn't ask permission from symmetry. Over decades of observation, researchers like Benitez began noticing something strange. Many individuals with strong spiritual sensitivity, prophets, intercessors, seers, those who simply know what others miss, shared an unusual nasal shape. Not inherited, not medically explained. It was just there, curved, tilted, sharply defined, like a silent arrow pointed at the invisible. This is not cosmetic, it is cosmic. Ancient texts and forgotten manuscripts often associated the nose with the divine breath, the ruach, the spirit. They wrote about the fragrance of the Christ, the breath of the Almighty, the life that enters and leaves through this sacred bridge. And in some of those same writings, the nose was seen not only as a channel for breath, but a sensor of the unseen. Those who carry this mark often grow up confused by their sensitivity. They don't just see things, they feel. They enter a room and instantly know if something is off. They hear someone speak, and though the words are kind, they smell something beneath. Deception, sadness, unrest. It's not judgment, it's discernment. Their bodies react before their minds can process. Tingling during prayer, tightness in chaotic places, aversion to lies even when no one else sees them. This is not hypersensitivity. This is spiritual radar embedded in flesh. And while others think they're just too sensitive, those who carry this seal live with a weight few can understand, the inability to ignore what is hidden. It's not a choice. It's in them, wired into the very structure of their face. This is why many with this kind of nose report vivid spiritual experiences. They smell things others can't, fragrant confirmations or disturbing presences. They dream of fire, breath, wind, and they often feel most alive in moments of deep spiritual clarity when something from another realm passes through them like a gust of truth. It's a hard gift. It isolates. It overwhelms. It often forces silence in a world addicted to noise. But it is not a mistake. It is not ugliness. It is a signature, carved into bone and blood by the one who formed you for things not easily seen. And when this seal appears with the others, the eye that sees beyond, the chin that carries responsibility, the dimple that heals with presence, then the face no longer hides what the soul carries. It becomes a message in itself, a map, and that's where we go next. Now that everything has been said, take a breath. Not a shallow one, not the automatic breath that gets you through your days, but a sacred breath, the kind your soul has been waiting to take for years. Because whether you realize it or not, something has shifted. And it didn't begin when you clicked on this video. It began much earlier. It began the moment you first noticed you were different and didn't know why. Maybe it started with the way people looked at you, curious, cautious, confused. Maybe it showed up in your childhood, when you could feel things others didn't. When you walked into a room and knew who was hurting without a word. When you sensed lies, felt presences, dreamed vividly, or carried burdens that weren't yours. Or maybe it started with the mirror. That strange relationship you've had with your own reflection, not because of insecurity, but because something in your face always felt unexplained. Like you were wearing something you didn't choose, like your features whispered messages you weren't ready to hear. But now, maybe you're ready. Ready to see what the mirror has always been trying to show you. Those marks, the uneven gaze, the divided chin, the dimple of comfort, the unusual nose, they were never flaws. They were codes, etchings from the unseen realm, signatures carved by a hand beyond time. Not for decoration, not for vanity, but for recognition. You've spent so long trying to blend in, trying to be soft enough not to disturb, small enough not to intimidate, quiet enough not to make others uncomfortable. But the truth is, you were never designed to blend. You were never meant to disappear. Because the marks you carry don't belong to this world, and neither does your calling. And now that you've seen them, truly seen them, you can't unsee. You can't return to ignorance. You can't go back to calling coincidence. What your soul knows is sacred design. So look again. Look at your face, not as a flaw to be corrected, but as a message that's been waiting to be read. Look at your life, not as a series of strange moments, but as a journey of slow unveiling. You are not broken. You are not late. You are not too much. You are not imagining things. You are, and have always been, marked. Marked by light. Marked by truth. Marked by an assignment that cannot be outsourced. And the beauty of it all is this. The world doesn't have to understand you. It was never supposed to. The marks weren't given for them. They were given for those who would one day recognize them in you and awaken something in themselves. Because chosen ones recognize each other, even in silence, even in pain, even across distances. And when one remembers, others begin to remember too. So if your heart is burning, if your chest feels heavy, if your soul is whispering, "This is me," then don't walk away from that knowing. Sit with it. Honor it. Let it speak. Because the time of hiding is over. The age of invisibility is ending, and the earth is calling for those who have been sealed in flesh, but assigned from heaven. So look again. You were never ordinary. You were a message, written on a face. And now the message has been delivered. If you felt seen today, if something inside you whispered, "I've known this all along," comment below with the number 99. That number seals what has been revealed, a code of divine remembrance and identity. When you type it, you declare, "I recognize who I am." And if this space feels like home, subscribe. Not as a follower, but as one of the marked. Because here, you don't just watch videos. You remember your mission.